But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Number ZZ9 plural Z alpha. Number ZZ9. I said I've never seen such hideousness in all my life.
Listen to all this,
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio. Radio with Buddy.
But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Number ZZ9 plural Z alpha. Number ZZ9.
Hello and welcome to HBR Talk 347, the absolute state of propaganda. I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with Nonsense Annihilator Lauren Brooks and the personification of perceptivity, Mike Stevenson. And tonight, we're taking a little bit of a break from that stinky rabbit hole we've been in. As you can see, we are looking at something a little bit different. I'm going to have to be moving the window around a little bit, though, because I'm using screenshots, because I noticed as I was researching this, even the descriptions for some things were changing. So I wanted to preserve what I saw in the moment when I was working on this. But before we get into this, and what we're going to get into is two different things that are more the same than they seem like. They're both stories out of the UK. And they're both the effects, or at least the intended effects, of propaganda on the general public and how that pans out in, say, public behavior and the behavior of the legal system, the courts, the legislative system, and so on. So we'll start, though, by doing what we gotta do, as always. And as always, Honey Badger Radio dishes out a smorgasbord of thought-provoking discussions, and as experiences both recent and long past have demonstrated, the provoked thoughts are fighting back. And we just got done provoking a few thoughts on X right before the show, actually. They've made it clear that for people like
we
us...
never get done provoking the thoughts on X. It's a perpetual mission that we will have until the end of time.
The most current thoughts are the X thoughts, and
it's a big job, and somebody's got to do it. Damn it!
There's more than one way to take that too, and you can have all of them. That's why they're thoughts. Just saying. But they've made it clear that for people like us relying on third-party payment platforms to fund our work, like, say, Patreon, is treading on thin ice, or building our house in the path of a rapidly growing wildfire. In light of this, we strongly encourage our supporters to switch at least their support for us to feedthebadger.com, the most stable way to help us out. And if you want to tip us directly instead of relying on any social media platform's tip jar, the link for that is feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And as always, same risk applies to our social media platforms. We could all get banned from everything at any time, which is why you should further provoke the thought police by tracking our thought-provoking discussions on honeybadgerbrigade.com, where you can find your way to all of our content, as well as a link to feedthebadger.com in the drop-down menu at the top of the page. And somewhere on X there is a guy right now arguing with two ladies that don't live anywhere near me that we are all three the same person. Because I commented on a thread. Oh, and a dude. He's also
of course
the same person.
Got it.
So,
Are you sure that's not you? I have it on good authority that you're a dude.
Yes. I also have been told this numerous times by people who are not my OB-GYN, who delivered my baby. So I'm actually the first dude to give real childbirth. Oh, good grief. It says, I don't know why, but it's saying that it's not able to connect on... It was doing fine, too, on Rumble. Like, I gave it the stream key. I gave it the information. Something's going on with Rumble. So, sorry, Rumble crowd. Apparently, there is no stream. So, I'm going to make a quick comment.
In the meantime, I guess we'll entertain those of you who are still on YouTube. This is where I say, please join us on Rumble, but I guess it's not the best time to be saying that.
Yeah.
Rumble has problems as well. But at least they don't delete half of the shit you say every time you try and say shit.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they're literally doing that right now. But, well, they're not deleting it. They just,
Something's
I guess...
not right.
It's technical difficulties when it comes to Rumble.
Yeah,
they're not deleting the things we say.
I think the problem is...
Concentrate
actually...
on getting Rumble finished. I'm going to entertain the people while you do that.
Yeah, I know, I'm looking at it. I genuinely think the problem is actually with Restream and not Rumble. It just is not liking Rumble today. That's screwy. I'm going to try... Okay, so the last time something didn't work, I turned it off and on again, and it started working. So I'm going to try that. Turn it off. Turn it on. Is it working?
Have you tried turning everything off and on again?
Oh no, if I do that, then it'll start a whole new YouTube stream.
I guess it would, yeah.
I'm tech support. Ha! Look, it's streaming. Oh my gosh.
Nice.
That's all IT guys do, right? They go, have you tried turning off and on again? If that doesn't work, they just Google the problem.
One of my friends took an IT call from a lady years ago who was working on something, and all of a sudden her whole system just shut off. And so he's going through, is this going on? Is that going on? Did you have this happen? And there's a lot of things that could go wrong with a system back in the day that are a lot less likely today because everything was slower, less capable of handling heavy loads, blah, blah, blah. And finally he got to asking her, well, did it come unplugged? She couldn't tell. And he's like, well, is the plug somewhere out of sight? Can you move something so you can see it? Is it possible that it got, She's like, well, I can't see anything. And he's like, what do you mean you can't see anything? And she's like, well, the power's off. This is why IT guys go bald, okay? It's not because they have male pattern baldness. It's because they have to deal with people that don't understand what they're doing, and then they end up pulling their hair out in frustration.
Sometimes they have to travel 100 miles just to switch on a server that they were assured by 3 different people had not been switched off.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's much the same. We're always going to have technical difficulties, but we're slowly and surely getting better at keeping the fort down while the technical difficulties happen.
It's funny. They get so frustrated, though. It's not funny, haha, but one of the places where I worked, the guys that programmed the error messages into the system, this is what it's going to say when XYZ happens. One of the error messages was a response to something that the manager should not be trying to make the computer do. And that ended up being the error message, a whole bunch of text would go scrolling across the screen, and it would finish up at the very end with all capital letters, "This should never happen." It was great because that manager did it 6 times while I was there.
Oh my
and she never could figure out what it was that was causing the problem.
Anywho, we're back in production. So Matriarch Productions, let's do the thing.
I've delayed long enough. We now have 7 people, 7 people on Rumble. After I told everybody to leave, sorry, guys, but there we go. All right, so let's get into.
I just got a comment saying Hannah is much quieter than Mike. Yeah, this often happens.
Why?
No, this is normal. People don't
showing.
Notice.
You're literally not showing as super loud an OBS.
I'm gonna turn down. I think that should be better.
Okay, I don't understand how that happens because everything on my computer that tells me how loud I am versus how loud everybody else is tells me I'm louder than everybody else, and then everybody tells me I'm quieter. I have my microphone turned all the way up too. I don't understand. So I guess I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on with that. Or Brian has some sound mixer he uses on his shows. I'm just gonna have to take the time.
I guess
when I get downtime again to familiarize myself with it.
Well, you got at least 2 shitty mics, and I am one of them. But I can work on I've turned myself down.
There we go. You didn't even ask yourself out. How can you turn yourself down?
I mean, no, right?
Lauren and I are both usually louder than you on this show, and I don't know if you can turn yourself down, Lauren. I guess not, because you're using newfangled Apple technology that doesn't let you do that. But it's fine. This will be fine.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, I'm like practically eating my microphone too, but it is a gaming headset, so this might all change. I guess we're getting me a better headset again, since I had just for the record. I had, what does this say on it? It's Sennheiser, but does it say which one? It does not. The bit that said which one is no. Oh, it was a Sennheiser PC8. So this is an older microphone, an older headset that I used to have, all right? That thing lasted 10 years.
Wow.
That's what what we're going for is that same level of quality where it'll last a long time like that. But, Mike turned too far down. Richard says.
Yeah, I'm turning back up again. I don't know what the fuck to do. Fuck it.
So now we have to ask the question: turn down for what? But all right. So as you can see on the screen, I have this image of the about description from Matriarch Productions. And we are going to read this. This is the production company for a thing we're going to look at. I'm going to move my little... oh, you know what? I haven't actually shared this with my colleagues, so let me do that really quick. I thought I had shared my screen already, but I didn't. There we go. So Mike and Lauren can see this now. But yeah, this is one of the things I looked up when I saw the... We're now getting static again. God damn it. When I saw the thing that we're going to talk about first today, or look at first today, Matriarch Productions is an entertainment production company founded by actors Stephen Graham and Hannah Walters, who I don't know. I think I know who Stephen Graham is. I don't know who Hannah Walters is. The company was established in 2020, so it's brand new. Like, it's still wet behind the ears, needs its diapers changed and all that, with the aim of providing a much-needed platform for underrepresented voices and stories in the UK.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
How can they say that anything is underrepresented? The TV is basically a vagina with a goddamn set of antenna on top of it.
Yeah.
God.
Now that's
so
a rabbit
bad.
hole we don't want to go into.
Yeah. Yes. Especially not in the UK.
Yeah. So they go on. Championing diversity and inclusivity within the entertainment industry, the organization produces both film and television projects, offering opportunities for new and underrepresented talent, both in front of and behind the camera. Sounds all illustrious, right? What this actually tells you is this is a propaganda company. This is a feminist-run, feminist-led organization producing woke ideology for the public, for public consumption. The whole idea behind it is to make you think certain things, right? Make you think that women are oppressed and men are the patriarchy and everybody needs to shut up and listen to women and so on. And it's of course it's like 1250 when women are under some form of coverture and the world is a much more dangerous place, right? So that's the first thing we're going to look at. The next thing I want to put up is, let's see, there we go. All right. So Warp Entertainment is has come up with this thing called Adolescence. It's I guess a 4-part series that, and from what I've seen, it just basically, it was written to demonize the quote-unquote manosphere. And the reason that we were looking at Matriarch Productions is there they are, right in the middle here, right under Mark Herbert and Emily Feller, Matriarch Productions, right? So the other productions, the companies, the other organizations that are involved with this don't have that kind of statement on their pages. In fact, Plan B, like, it sounds like it might be related to the birth control thing, the abortion pill, but it's not. It's an entertainment company created by Brad Pitt. It has nothing to do with any such initiative. So there are people involved in this who are not particularly known as feminists, whose goals may or may not be on board with feminism, or even anything woke, that may have been roped into this just because they provide a particular type of service, like film editing, or creating the scenery, or script writing or any of the broad variety of things that are done in filmmaking, because there's like a gazillion jobs involved in that now. There always were a lot of jobs involved in that, but it's just gotten bigger the more neat things we can do with film to make the viewing experience more immersive and realistic and fun usually, but not this time, right? So this is actually a pretty big project for being a 4-part series, and it's got all these different, like, Warp Films, Matriarch Productions, One Shoe Films, It's All Made Up, and then several names with different organizations. If you look this up now, a bunch of these have dropped off what comes up now. But they were there when I initially looked it up, which is why I took the screenshot. And then I looked up Plan B Entertainment. Just this is my evidence that I'm not kidding. This is not anything to do with the Plan B pill. This is a film and television production company co-founded by Brad Pitt, now just headed by Brad Pitt. If I remember right, there was after the fallout between Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston, this other guy, Brad Gray, dropped out from it too. So he's by himself as far as the original founders. So that's who's behind this. We'll look at, really briefly, a description of another project they're doing, so you understand this isn't a unique thing, right? This is another trailer, but I'm not going to play the trailer. This is a screenshot from it. So this is the name of this other project is called Pop, and it says, set within a forgotten Midlands village, Pop follows a true tale about gender identity and social expectations. We follow Jack, who befriends a lawless convict as a father figure in the hope to understand his masculinity. So, and this is another Netflix thing, I think, as well. So this just to let you know what we're looking into here. And now there's 2 other things to look into. One of them isn't directly related to this. We'll go with that one first. Well, no, we'll go with this one first. This one is more directly related. So Netflix actually has a diversity and inclusion statement here. Building a legacy of inclusion. Research shows that including more perspectives behind the camera creates better representation in front of the camera. This is what they're showing, and we're not going to watch their little video about this, but they have a fund for creative equity. Equity is a Marxist feminist term, right? Equality.
It's worth pointing out that the what's called in the industry talent, as in the people who appear in front of the camera, has always been quite diverse, especially when it comes to men and women.
Yeah.
Like, it's difficult to get any story about human interaction across that doesn't have men and women in it. There are obviously some exceptions, but generally speaking, there are as many women in front of the camera as there are men. And that always has been for as long as cameras have been a thing. But the people behind the cameras have generally been men for most of the existence of cinema, and not because women are being pushed out of it any more than women were ever being pushed out of the talent pool. It's just that, to bring back the old cliche, men are autistic and women are narcissistic. And, you know, I realize that sounds like a sweeping assumption, but to some degree it's true. Men really like machines, and women really like faces. This can be ascertained from a very early age. You know, boys will look at clocks and women will look at faces. And, you know, cameras are just like clocks. Men understand machines better than women do. And arguably, women understand faces better than men do. That's sort of debatable, but to some degree, yeah, they're more focused on faces than men are. And yeah, they're just using this as an excuse. like they do for all things, to say that women aren't getting enough positions in the most celebrated roles. But no, they have. They always have. They've always been the talent, and I hate that word, but that's the word the industry uses for the people in front of the camera, and they're always the most revered, the most celebrated, the most highly paid in the entire crew. And evidently that was never good enough. But still, they're not pushing for women to clean the sewers or to pick up the garbage. But they really want women to operate the cameras, because that doesn't involve hazards or anything. It still involves. Well, women must be really good with machines. You can't be telling us men are better with machines than women are. That's misogynist. So we need to put women in charge of the machines as well. No, not necessarily. Like, why were you not satisfied with women being at least half of the quote-unquote talent? It's because you're slowly pushing men out of every job that they prefer, except cleaning up the sewers and shit. And it's, I've run out of juice. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. Men, in a way, men are better machines than women. And unfortunately, women have decided to be the buttons and the levers and the switches and so on. And what that has resulted in is a circumstance where women cry and men do. And that's what's going on with this fund. So equity is a feminist way of avoiding the idea of equality when the idea of equality doesn't provide an advantage for women through feminism. So, for instance, equality is Jack and Jill both apply for a job. The employer doesn't base their hiring practices on the sex of the individual. They base their hiring practices on things like education, skill, job history, age, all the things that may contribute, and they have to be careful with age too, because they can't just not hire somebody because they're old or young. But say if you're underage, then they have to be careful, at least in some areas. If you're underage, there are things your employer is not allowed to make you do, like work without a lunch break. So, or certain jobs that they're not allowed to hire you for because they might be too dangerous for an underage kid, right? So they'll base it on things like that. But under equity, Jill can argue that because her ancestors, her female ancestors, didn't get a fair shake, that means Jack shouldn't get a fair shake, and she should be getting preferential treatment in hiring so that she can have this job. That's equity in a nutshell. And feminists will try to tell you that it's not. They'll try to tell you that Jill has disadvantages that trace back to that past discrimination that they're claiming. Even though that past discrimination wasn't discrimination, it was a social contract. So that's what equity actually is about. So the Netflix Fund for Creative Equity is a dedicated effort to build new pathways for underrepresented communities within entertainment. Through the fund, Netflix will support external organizations committed to creating more equitable environment in the film and TV industries, or the TV and film industries, as well as bespoke Netflix programs that help us to identify, train, and provide potential job opportunities for up-and-coming talent globally. So, in other words, this program is funding woke programming and woke hiring practices all over the world. Wherever Netflix has studios or offices where they take in work that's done at independent studios, what have you. And, this company does they show different things in the UK than they show in the US, for instance. There are things that may be available free in the UK or available for paying for Netflix in the UK that you can't get in the US unless you use a VPN that says you're in the UK. And they do the same thing with different countries in Europe, so it's not just because it's across the pond. And they have several programs here, so we're not just talking about one fund that people just all get grants from, right? There's an amplifier fellowship. They're shipping this out to South Korean filmmakers. They've got an Accelerate fellowship to support more disabled film and TV writers in their projects specifically. So now if you have a disability and you present something to Netflix, you don't know if they picked it because it's good or if they picked it because you're disabled. Like, if I created a film and I let them know that I'm autistic, I would never know then. Was this actually good, or did they just pick it because I'm autistic? Were they feeling sorry for me? Like, I would hate that. Especially, I am a writer. I don't do a lot with fiction, but I would be really upset if I thought the only reason that somebody wanted me around and somebody wanted me to work for them was so that they could say, look, we ticked off this box, we got our autist. Like, fuck you. I'm leaving. You know?
By the way, I've never needed a VPN in order to view these shows that I'm not allowed to view on Netflix because I'm in the wrong country. Because I know where to look on the internet.
That's another option.
I don't even need to go to the dark web or the deep web for this. There's stuff on the normal web where you can catch any show you like as long as you know where to look. My Flixer.
Yeah.
I didn't say any of this. I mean, not that I don't need to, because it's not illegal to view these things. It's only illegal to air these things, and only in certain countries. So you just find certain websites that are allowed to post these things in whatever country in which they're hosting these things. That's how autistic I am.
There you go.
I don't need a fucking VPN. I just know how to look things up. It's surprisingly easy. If you like a show, just go on to ideally DuckDuckGo and type the name of the show and the episode you want to watch, and then stream free online. You have a lot of links to go through before you find one that actually works. Just go to my Flixer. I didn't say that. I didn't say any of this. But
that's
yeah,
correct.
you can do all of that. That's how I'm catching up on Severance.
There we go.
Season finale is coming up on Friday. It's exciting.
I am so excited for that.
But yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that because I wouldn't do any of that ever. But yeah, that's all I'm saying. Shut up.
There we go. So the reason we're not going through every single one of these is if you look down here, you see all these little dots. Each one is another 4 of these. So that tells you how big this program is. And they have all of this funding coming from, these different groups. Now, I haven't gone through and looked at all the different groups, right? But that's probably, I will bet that's going to grow. I have not found any connection, by the way, between this and the USAID system, which we also call USAIDs. You can, by the way, test whether or not your nation has been infected with USAIDs. If you have an epidemic of feminist propaganda, and your children are being targeted for genital mutilation, you can pretty much be certain that your country has been infected with USAIDs. And at this point, right now, the only cure is populism. But if you can't do that, you can vicariously support populism in the U.S. Maybe if we kill, it's like vampires, if you kill the head vampire, if we kill the source of the USAIDs, it might reduce the rate of infection all over the world, possibly down to 0. So there you go. In the meantime, so there's the legacy. Here's what they're doing in France. This came up in a search. This is not to do with specifically with the show we're going to look at, but oh, that's the wrong thing. I thought I had the thing up of what they're doing in France, but maybe I closed it because it was France. And we are talking about something happening in the UK. So they have a whole program in France that is female specific. It looks like I decided that was not as relevant as it looked. So this is everything to know about this drama. We're going to watch the trailer after we read this. So I wanted to go through all of this before we look at the trailer, have this in the background, right? Dang it, stop. My mouse is behaving badly. It's got hand to virus.
Oh God, Hannah.
That was bad. Now you all have hantavirus. It's very punishing illness. So, the drama Adolescence. What would you do if your teenage son was accused of murder? It's one of several questions at the heart of the new crime drama Adolescence, right? This makes it sound like an innocent show. Oh, your teenage son is accused of murder. This is a show about due process, right? Right? Streaming now, Adolescence is a 4-part limited series starring Stephen Graham, and it lists some of his work. And each episode is filmed in one unflinching and continuous shot. Which, they're not the first people to do the whole continuous shot thing. That's like, it's not impressive anymore. And so I don't know why it's done so much. But, okay.
Is that the name of the 13-year-old kid who's playing the part of the that black kid who killed that girl?
You can just go and say it.
Here you go. Let's see. We'll find a picture of him. Okay. No, this, like, I've seen him before. Right? I know who this guy is, but he's not the kid. I believe in this he's playing the dad.
Awesome. I'm sure he thinks he's found his big break, but I get the feeling he's not going to get much work after this, and he's going to be subjected to all the nutters who see a character on screen and think it's real, and they're going to take out all of their revenge on that person. They're going to go, "Oh, you're that kid who killed that girl." No, I'm not. I didn't even kill that girl. I'm just a rare swapped version of that kid who actually did kill that girl. Please don't fucking take it out on me. This is the wrong accent. There's lots of different northern accents. And yeah, he's no. Not only is he never going to find work again, he's going to have to go into hiding, and he's going to be subjected to all the usual symptoms that child actors go through. He's going to be a fucking drug addict for the rest of his life.
I hope not.
And yeah, Netflix aren't going to care about this.
They won't take responsibility. That's for sure.
Fucking British, the fucking British government that is out here in the Houses of Commons saying, "Oh yeah, everyone should watch this series. You should all subject your children to this series."
So they've done a very
and make sure that you learn everything.
Oop, Mike, you still there?
Go on.
Oh, okay. I thought I lost your sound.
Yes, sorry.
But they've done a very sneaky trick here.
You started talking, so
yeah, they've done a very sneaky trick here, and I've been watching this on X. Everybody thinks this is about whitewashing knife crime. Right? Everybody thinks this is about making something that immigrants did into something that British kids did, right? But there's another undercurrent here that isn't quite so under, and you'll see it when you see it. Like the meme goes, you will shit bricks. All right? There's a reason why I'm doing this on a men's issue show. So, it starts out talking about how cleverly they unfolded it in real time. Main characters from Central Family to the detectives investigating the crime search for answers in the wake of a shocking tragedy. Who is actually responsible? Why did it happen? Could it have been prevented? And then we're going to skip through all the bullshit there. And there we go. So here's the part that struck me. One of our aims is to ask what is happening to our young men these days, and what are the pressures they face from their peers, from the internet, from social media, Graham told Netflix. And the pressures that come from all of those things are as difficult for kids as they are the world over. Check out some photos from the psychological drama below and read to find out more about the series, and then it goes on, and there's pictures and crap. But here's the thing, right? You go back up to this this statement. What is happening to our young men these days? This is not about color. This is not about race. This is not about nationality. This is about demonizing boys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about demonizing. It's about demonizing the so-called manosphere. The communication.
Yeah, it's about demonizing boys and the internet, because these are the two things that the British government is allowed to hate.
Well, it's not the
without
internet.
restriction.
They're just fine with the feminist parts of the internet.
It's boys on the internet.
Yeah, boys on the internet. It's demonizing advocacy for boys, and it's demonizing advocacy or discussion that in any way, shape, or form legitimizes boys' sense of humanity and legitimizes boys' objections to being mistreated, treated as less than human, demonized, treated as bad guys, treated as defective girls, and so on, right? This was not made to be about immigration. It wasn't made to be about race. It wasn't made to be about knife crime. It was made to be anti-masculinity. It was made to be anti-men's human rights. It was made to dehumanize boys.
And a lot of people will be out there saying, no, it's only about demonizing white boys on the internet. No, I mean, they're taking the things that non-British boys do in real life, and they're extending it to they're blaming it on anything men and boys do on the internet, and they're not explicitly making any distinction. Like black boys are going to face the same problem. Arab boys are going to the multitude of races of boys in the UK are all going to face the same problem, because that's what the government is trying to crack down on. All boys, all men of any kind. I mean, they're going to use their propaganda to specifically portray white boys, but it's not going to be a distinction when it comes to whatever laws they enact. All males are going to face these consequences. It's probably going to get mostly enforced on. I don't want to say white boys because I don't approve of this this reductive, literally black and white identity politics. It's not about black and white. It's about native. The more native you are, the more you're going to get punished. Like if you're black and you sound British, you're gonna get punished more than black people who don't sound British, or the Arab kids who don't sound British or whatever. It's no matter what happens, they're gonna keep pointing the finger at native men and native boys, and anyone who even resembles native boys. Doesn't matter what color you are. If you are representing or defending native boys, you're under the crosshairs. That's what it comes down to, and it's mostly anything male or anything masculine. Like, yes, obviously there is a racial element to this, but it's secondary to just the masculine element. Always has been, always will be.
They came out and admitted this right in their description here too. It says in What Is Adolescence About? That it tells the story of how a family's world is turned upside down when a 13-year-old is arrested for the murder of a teenage girl who goes to a school, and then they say, we could have made a drama about gangs and knife crime, or about a kid whose mother is an alcoholic or whose father is a violent abuser, says Graham. Instead, we wanted you to look at this family and think, my God, this could be happening to us. They want you to think this is something that normal boys from healthy families will fall into if they are allowed to have conversations online about how they are treated by society. That's what's happening here is an ordinary family's worst nightmare. Right there. Ordinary family. So this is not targeted toward dads, right? For the most part. This is targeted toward moms. This kind of fear-mongering is targeted to make moms look at their sons and see potential monsters that could pop out at any moment for no reason, just because they talk to other boys online about how rotten it is when people call them names for being boys, or how rotten it is when they're graded more harshly for doing the same work in the same classroom as girls, or when they're punished for things that girls are allowed to get away with, or when girls are allowed to hit them and taunt them, haha, I can hit you and you can't hit me back because I'm a girl and you're a boy. When they get upset about those things, they won't have anybody to talk to, because if they bring it up and their mothers hear it and they've watched this trailer or this show, their first thought is going to be, oh my God, my son's going to become that boy that stabbed a girl in that TV show. Because women are often stupid about stuff like this. Rather than questioning it and going, I've raised this child from an infant. I've watched him not do these kind of things, not respond to things this way. If he's upset about something, it's probably legitimate and we should talk about it. But instead, what this is aimed at is fear-mongering, hitting that lizard brain in the back of a woman's head that says, if this looks scary, I have to attack it. And I have to get everyone around me to attack it. Right? I've got to raise a threat narrative. Threat narratives always work with women. And I've got to get the men around me to make it behave. They even make this kid look maniacal. Right? Like, this is a perfectly innocent looking kid too. Just an adorable little boy, and they deliberately have him doing expressions and looking from angles and shadowed and hidden and framed in the picture by the man's face. I think that's the father.
We did a rationing about this
guilty look
a few years ago. It's still available, I think. It's one of the few that I think Alison forgot to delete. It's called The Onion Conundrum. Look it up if you want to. I forget which corporation it was that advertised their products along the lines of demonizing prepubescent boys for the sake of advertising their product. It's been going on for a hell of a long time. Like never mind demonizing men. For a long ass time they've been demonizing young boys who haven't even, reached puberty.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's important that we make adult women scared of male children.
Yeah.
And it's words cannot express how. I say words cannot express it, but it's evil. It's evil. If you're gonna demonize children for the sake of scaremongering adults, I mean, you don't get much more evil than that.
Yeah.
This is
No.
evil. It's
Yeah.
fucking it's fucking evil.
And I mean, just fucking repulsive. Because if you want to have this kind of company that they want to include, they want to be inclusive and highlight, the type of characters that you don't see. Why couldn't you could what happened to the Duluth model, right? Like, stay in that lane. If that's what you want to do, just cater to women, just talk about women, just do that. Get every color of women you can find, like the fucking rainbow, and focus on that. But no, instead, what are we doing? Demonizing young male children. It's disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of Duluth model, though, in and of itself. Like, they treat boys as abusers in waiting. And the dumb thing is, like, in circumstances where a child, boy or girl, goes the route of, say, like, the bad seed or the good son, like in those types of movies where you have this child who is actually highly disturbed and does sociopathic things, in real life, that usually follows some sort of history where either there was a birth injury to the brain, or there was some sort of abuse, or there is a family history of the specific type of mental illness that has, unfortunately landed on the child. It doesn't come out of nowhere. And then when you get to a situation where a child gets to elementary school age, and that kind of behavior is not addressed, like the kid hasn't gotten any help, that's usually because the parents have ignored signs along the way. And I've personally been affected by this when I was in school. There was a kid in my class who had serious problems, and he was suffering. It wasn't like he was engaging in a lot of behavioral issues, but he personally himself was suffering. And all of our teachers tried to help him. All of our teachers talked to his mom. And because of the stigma around certain types of mental health conditions, and also because it's unusual for a young child to get diagnosed, as opposed to they don't figure it out until the individual is in his adolescence or her adolescence. This kid went undiagnosed for years, had difficulty learning to read, couldn't control himself in class, had some really strange moments where his behavior indicated that his perception of reality was not the same as everybody else's. And it wasn't until we were in the summer between junior high and high school that he got the help that he needed. So he went through years of just getting into trouble all the time and not being able to make a lot of good close friendships because other kids were afraid of him or annoyed by him or just didn't want to get in trouble that he was getting into, so they wanted to avoid being caught up in whatever trouble he was getting into. And it really didn't need to happen. Right? And this kind of demonization where it's treated like this family is perfectly normal and this comes out of nowhere and this kid is explosively wrong in some way or another without any kind of warning or any kind of his parents don't have any clues. That doesn't help. It creates a circumstance where you go back through this topic, right, of this portrayal, and the discussion is going to revolve around, well, what could the parents have done? What signs did they miss? What should they have seen? What should they have stopped their son from doing? And of course, obviously, it was socialization with other boys online. Right? He should have been supervised online. Well, yes, he should be supervised online, No, that means you can't have conversations about men's human rights, and so on, right? But what's going to end up happening is parents like the parent of my classmate are going to have that fear instilled in them. If I admit there's something happening with my child that is not in line with what's happening with all the other children, I'm admitting there's something wrong with my child, and therefore there's something wrong with my parenting. That doesn't help the child get any kind of assistance in changing the trajectory of his development. Right? That ends up hurting instead. And what have we got? Yeah, the Gabriel, Phil, and Lucas pointed out, and this was a story we reported on a few years ago too. They're encouraging parents in the UK to report their sons if they have any misogynistic tendencies, to report their sons to the school for program assistance. Right? So this is actually a very serious issue. And before I go on, though, I've got to point out we do have some super chats, and one of them was in the moment. Actually, this was from quite a while ago. But that one was from right after the start of the show. So I Am Helping gave us $5 and said, here is some money to help fight the deep state swamp monster hordes funded by the AIDS disease of the U.S. He's like, that's very important. We've got to fund U.S. AIDS cure research, right? Meredith G gave us $5 and said, HBR Talk 347, honey for the badgers. And then Xeranx, we have I believe... I can't tell what that is because it's not coming through Rumble, but it doesn't show as a super chat, and it doesn't show a monetary amount, but it's highlighted. Member for 6... Oh, I see. So it's a subscription. I disagree. Race is secondary. I think it's poisoned arrowhead to keep division stoked, keep men down, and heighten concern about boys. Remember, TGTOW. So, it's secondary, but it's not secondary.
What's TikTok?
TikTok.
What is that? What does that
something
mean?
Going their own way. T must stand for something. But race is just a way to cover for the gender hate, right? Race is just a way to cover that they're targeting men.
You must know by now that feminists have taken over the education system since 60 years ago.
Yeah, since
forever. That was long before it was extended to anything racial based. Like, maybe the racial thing has gone further than the sex thing ever did. But I don't think it has. But it's undeniable that the sex thing came first, and I'm trying to call it sex instead of gender.
Yeah,
it's difficult
teens going their own way
to do that because sex is an ambiguous word and gender is less. Like, I'm still like, I don't want to call it gender because they'll say, well, gender is different from sex. Well, I'm talking about sex. I'm talking about males. It's been several lifetimes since further education institutions have been flooded with this idea that men are the problem. Men are all of the problems. Men are the center of the problem. And it was only long since after that that these feminists started saying, oh, it's, by the way, it's specifically white males that are the problem. And I'm not going to sit around and pretend that that this racial divide is a bigger problem than the gender divide. The sex divide. I keep reminding myself not to use their fucking terminology.
We're not appliances, and we're not building materials, and we're not computer parts, so we don't have gender, we have sex.
Yeah,
we're not words
try not to
either.
Forget.
Words have gender.
Try not to forget that what I'm going to call socialism / communism has been slow marching their way through the institutions And the first element of our institutions that they conquered was the sex divide, long before they ever got into the racial divide.
Yeah.
So you may say that the racial divide is stronger at this point, but the sexual divide came first. That was the seed from which the creeping ivy grew. So if you want to solve this problem, then if all you're going to do is attack the racial divide, then all you're doing is attacking the leaves, when you really want to be attacking the seeds. The seeds have been here for at least half a century, arguably a century, arguably 2 centuries. Like, and if all you do is solve the racial problems, then we're still going to have the sexual problems that were sowed by feminists a century ago, on average. Like, the racial problems are a result of the sexual problems. That we put a bunch of fucking feminists in charge, and they eventually decided that it's not just males who are the problem, it's white males. And they've been instilling this this ideology into our system for a very fucking long time. And you know, the racial division has only been pinned on top of the sexual division. Like, this is why we have these oikophobic problems, because of these feminist problems. And I don't know how I push this into you any further than by saying what I just said. But for fuck's sake, how is it not obvious to our general audience,
Man,
that feminists took over our society, and they decided that our native men are the biggest problem? I mean, they're telling you this as explicitly as they can, that straight white males are the problem. Like, it's them who instilled in us the idea that straight white men are the problem. And it started with men are the problem. And then it became straight white men. And then it became white men, and then it became straight white men. Like, recognize that, or you're never going to be able to fix this problem. The idea that they started focusing on white men, let alone straight white men, is only the secondary and tertiary progressions, dare I say, of this ideology. It started with men are the problem, then it became white men are the problem. Like, please recognize this, or you're never going to be able to fix it, or you're just slashing at the leaves. Fucking uproot the seeds, or this is going to keep happening.
yeah. And there are 2 elements to consider here. All right. Now, yes, there are gang crimes happening, and yes, they're more involving knives than other weapons. Partly because the gang members don't have easy access to other weapons, but partly because the gang members in questions are a bit backward in their methods as well. But what's interesting here is there's a completely different response when the knife crime is female perpetrated, right? Remember that chick that stabbed her partner with a bread knife and got off because, or almost got off because she could be a doctor and has a brilliant mind and shit? I can't even her name.
Yeah, I don't remember her name either, but yeah, I remember her face.
So we're gonna look at another story like this, but we're gonna finish with this first. So this is an interesting bit as well. While Jamie's story specifically isn't based on a real person or event, the idea for the series did spring from reports that co-creator Graham had heard about on the news of young boys being involved in knife crimes. So let's just isolate that, right? So now it's in blue, it's isolated from the rest of the paragraph, since they're isolating the idea of knife crimes. My understanding from reading these news stories from afar, from across the pond, is that they all seem to involve a conflict between two different cultures, disparate cultures, diverse cultures from each other, right? That maybe don't have a lot of compatibility with each other, and the criminal activity is somewhat a result of conflict between cultural ideals and cultural beliefs and interests, individual interests, rather than being so much a thing of boys doing this because they are boys and targeting girls because they feel girls have usurped something in their lives or done something to them for being boys, which is what this series is made to imply about the knife crime, that this is a misogynistic reaction to girls' advancement and boys feeling left behind or mistreated, right? In which case, it's a lie. Right? If it's based on criminal activity that is existing, but they've changed all of the details, so the boys aren't coming from the type of family that the boy in the story comes from. The boy in the story doesn't have anything in common other than sex, the fact that he is male, with the perpetrators of the real life events. The causes behind the crime in the series have nothing to do, no relation whatsoever to the causes behind the real life crimes. That is called a lie. We're basing this on means we took details from that and then applied them to fictional characters. But if they've changed all the details so that they resemble nothing of the original events, then they didn't take the details from the original events, other than the concept of knife crime in general. Right? And it goes on. There was an incident where a young boy allegedly stabbed a girl, Graham tells Tudum. It shocked me. I was thinking, what's going on? What's happening in society where a boy stabs a girl to death? What's the inciting incident here? Then it happened again, and it happened again, and it happened again. I really just wanted to shine a light on it and ask, what is happening today? What's going on? How have we come to this? Again, that's a lie. I'm going to call that out as a bald-faced lie, because he's not examining the perpetrators of those crimes. He's not examining what occurred as predicating incidents. He's not examining the mentality that went into perpetrating those crimes. He hasn't interviewed the people involved. He hasn't gone forward and talked to the families of the victims. All he has done is take it and, like, oh, these boys stabbed girls. Let's apply this to this story, and we're going to make up our own set of reasons. And then we're going to pretend that it's the same thing. Thorne adds that as the process went on, he, Graham, and Barantini grew fascinated with the question, or by the question of male rage, and started thinking about themselves as men, fathers, partners, and friends. So there is the crux. Men are not allowed to object. If you object, that's male rage, and you might stab a little girl. That's the message that they're trying to convey here. So if you discuss, say, fathers' rights issues, right? Fathers being discriminated against in custody court. If you discuss the impact of fatherlessness on the upbringing of boys, where boys are growing up in man deserts, and then they grow up and they don't know how to be adult men. They only know how to be little boys in crisis circumstances their whole lives, right? If you object to that, and you say, let's not take all the men out of these boys' lives, you are engaging in male rage and you're a threat. That's what this is intending to portray. If you suggest that it is not okay for women to abuse men and get away with it, if you suggest that men who get boiling water poured on them when they're sleeping, or get battered by women who are larger than they are, or get stabbed or shot by women, or hit with frying pans, or lied about to the public, that they should have some sort of recourse, that they should have a way out of that situation and a way to prosecute their perpetrator. You're objecting, right? Therefore, you have male rage, and you're a threat to little girls. That's the message here, right? And it's not subtle. It's blatant and open, and the entire goal of this series. Oop, wrong mouse. Sorry, I got two computers on this desk. I don't care about filmed in one. And I don't care about the drone. I think that's the whole thing that I was going to read. So now let's look at this trailer. So the trailer's 2 minutes and 27 seconds long. We're going to have to pause it periodically. I am going to also slow it down slightly. See if I can... There we go. I don't want it to be too slow because it gets distorted, but I want us to get a chance to stop and talk about stuff when it comes up. So here we go. And it's already malfunctioning. Fuck you, YouTube.
Police! What are you looking for? You're making a big mistake. He's only a kid.
Dad, I haven't done anything.
He's a good kid. Jamie.
So we're at 20 seconds here. And all we see in the beginning is like the SWAT team showing up at his house. So I don't know how this works in the UK. But I know how it works in Dayton, Ohio. I have an unfortunate familiarity with how it works in Dayton, Ohio. When a man is deemed dangerous or a boy is deemed dangerous in Ohio, they do not send a SWAT team. Right? A couple of guys come and knock on the door. Or a man and a woman. Some of our local police officers are female. And they expect you to answer. If you don't answer, then they'll come back with a warrant and break in. But they don't bust into your house like that and knock down your door unless you don't answer the first time they show up. And then
they need a warrant?
Yep.
A warrant?
Then they only get a warrant if they can prove there's validness to the allegation, validity to the allegation.
No, in the UK you just need to post the letter N, and they will batter down your door just in case you were encouraging someone else to post the letter I. That's pretty much how it works.
Wow. Okay, so the UK is completely batshit crazy. It's weird to see how swatting works in different countries because you have to suggest in the US to get somebody swatted. You have to suggest that somebody's life is in imminent danger.
A citizen in the US, a citizen needs to prompt the police to break down your door. In the UK, the police do not need a prompt.
Yeah.
They just need to decide for themselves that you need to go to jail because you may or may not have said something that the government doesn't like you saying. And it's almost always a criticism of the government.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
this is why I want to get the fuck out of this country as soon as possible and come to your country.
Here it's really like if something happened, even if I was accused of murder, like then the cops might come in. They'll still pound on the door, and then if I don't answer it, if they have a warrant, they might kick it in. But there's not going to be 30 of them unless there's some sort of. Also, she has 67 bazookas in her basement. Well, I don't have a basement, but 67 bazookas in the closet, and they believe that shit. You have to scare the shit out of them before they will do that. They have to think that somebody is trapped in the apartment and going to get killed if they don't bust in, or that somebody inside the apartment is about to do something dastardly and has a bunch of weapons or something like that, right? And then there's Canada. We got swatted in Canada. I think most of the people that were with us didn't even know that it happened. Because the cops never got out of the van. One officer came to talk to us, but they sent a SWAT van. And only a couple of us noticed that behind the officer, who was having a polite conversation with the leaders of our group in a public park, meeting in a public park, was a SWAT team in a van waiting to converge on us if there was any actual violence, which there wasn't, and there had been no actual valid reason for calling them. But in Canadian land, they actually find out what's going on before they go busting in anywhere. The big thing that happens in the United States with swatting that's really bad is if they got the building down the street confused for my building, they might swat my neighbors. And if they accidentally bust everything in the neighbor's apartment, destroy the door, trample everybody's car, kill their pets, put their son in a hospital, they have no liability for that because of qualified immunity, which happens to be something that Ohio is trying to get rid of. There are very good reasons to get rid of qualified immunity, and it needs to be replaced with something much more sensible, where if you file a lawsuit and it's deemed frivolous because actually the cops did nothing wrong and you were in the wrong, that there should be some sort of penalty for that, but they shouldn't be able to get away with doing something wrong, period. Even if it's a mistake, because what they do has major impact on people's lives. So what we just watched there is, it from the standpoint of an American, I'm like, did somebody call the cops and say this kid was holed up in the house with 50 guns or something? Because that's confusing to me. But Mike, you from what you've said, it sounds like this is done at the drop of a hat.
Someone just needs to call the police. Someone just needs to call the police and say, this person suggested that Islam should not take over the UK. Okay, you're going to jail. You're going to jail.
Wow.
It doesn't. You don't have to be accused of having 50 guns in your house and threatening your entire family with murder. No, you just need to say, I wish the government wouldn't invite 1 million Muslims to the country every day, and that's enough. You just need to say that on the internet, and the police will come around to your house. And if one of your kids says, you look like my lesbian nan, you're all going to jail.
Oh, wow. Jeez and Pete. And of course, they don't seem to have any...
Presumably nobody has guns over there.
Yeah, presumably. Okay.
I want you to listen carefully.
What's going on?
I'm going to start off with asking you.
Do you know a girl called Katie Leonard?
So I want you to pay attention
like
to the music in the background.
Speech,
like, everything that they've had, that they've shown up here, it's intended to dramatize. And the music, the way the bass and the clapping is played, that's intended to cause an adrenaline rush in you. So you're supposed to have an emotional response to this. If we were to find a way to take the music out of this and just play this without the music backing it, it would completely change the tone so far. So I'm going to go back 5 seconds. But Mike, what were you going to say?
I was about to say, you'll think you have freedom of speech in the United States, but the existence of swatting does present itself as something of a workaround, right? I mean, if you say something that some leftist doesn't like, then that leftist can just anonymously call the police on you and commit attempted murder, and they'll get away with it. That's how it starts. Well, it usually starts with taking away your guns.
Yeah.
But you see how this is a workaround.
This may be
even if you
changing,
have
though.
50, even if you have 50 guns in your house, if some leftist fucking swats you, then good luck with the standoff against the SWAT team, eh?
Yeah. Well, the whole thing may be changing because there may be some laws getting created to address this because it's been a problem for a long time. It actually predates right wingers being targeted. It was a rare thing, but there have been numerous instances where gamers have been targeted. So it's not, and then drug dealers will do this to each other too. So it's not new, and there are already process crimes, filing a false complaint with police, lying to police during an investigation, and then of course, if the law enforcement officials, the police or prosecutor, go in and they go to get, because they do need a judge's order or warrant to execute in order to show up like that. If they lie to get an emergency order, oh yes, we have evidence besides somebody called us and said this, and then they show up and they do damage. There's some recourse that can be had against them. You just can't sue them to make them replace your lemon pound cake in your front door. But yeah, in any case, with regard to the practice of swatting in the United States, it may be because it's becoming harder and harder to make phone calls anonymously where your identity cannot be ascertained by authorities or by your phone company. They're seeking to make it so that if you get caught, it's as serious as making a bomb threat, which you can go to jail for that. You can go to jail for calling in a fire that doesn't exist, right? If they can prove that you knew there was no fire, and they're looking at trying to apply penalties to calling in a threatening situation that doesn't exist, that results in somebody getting swatted, especially if they can prove that that was your intention. And if you do the traditional calling up and saying this person has been kidnapped in their own home and they're under immediate threat to their lives, and if the cops don't show up right now and get them rescued, they're all gonna die. That's pretty much how that ends up happening. How that gets done.
The very least you could do is first be able to triangulate where the call came from, and first confirm where the call came from. And once you've done that, maybe you could proceed with the swatting. And if it turns out it was a hoax, then you go after whoever the fuck it was who made the call.
Exactly.
That's the least you should be able to do. The fact that doesn't happen is, I mean, an absolute scandalous subversion of the First Amendment.
Well, the First Amendment doesn't protect you from, if I say something to my neighbor, and my neighbor gets mad and engages in any kind of behavior because I said that thing, right? That's not a First Amendment issue. A First Amendment issue would be if I said something and I got arrested for saying it, what I said, right? And it wasn't, I'm going to kill person X, or I'm going to set this building on fire, and it was a believable threat. Like, if I do that, I can get arrested for that because that's threatening violence, right? But if I start saying, Joe, I think Joe Biden was an absolute child molester when Joe Biden is president, I can't get arrested for that. If I say Joe Biden's policies are all terrible, and anybody that voted for Joe Biden is a dumbass and probably belongs in an institution, right? If I could see the rudest shit about Joe Biden's virus or Trump's. Donald Trump's in office right now. People can say the rudest shit about people who voted for Donald Trump, about Trump's policies. They can call him a rapist. They can call him a convicted criminal. We can't get arrested for that. All right? Our neighbors can.
But someone else can hear you saying it. Can hear you saying that, and then they contact your local police and say this person is holding their wife and children hostage. All they have to do is lie,
right?
And they get to this, and they get to the same point that the UK is at.
Sort of.
It's just the same thing with extra steps.
What happens with swatting is a little different because they break into your house.
Obviously, we have it worse here, but you'll have workarounds there as well.
It's like if I got swatted and they came in here and they obviously would come in here and they would see me sitting here in my pajamas doing a live stream completely unharmed, right? And after the initial confusion, as long as I'm smart and I cooperate and I don't do anything stupid, like trying to backtalk to them, I'm fine. Nobody's here but me right now. So, and if somebody was here, I would be able to say, okay, well, my husband is in the bathroom. He'll, and please call him by his name, Brian, so he doesn't freak out, that there's strangers in the house. And everything, like while I'm laying on the floor with my hands where they can see them so I don't get shot, right? That's cooperation, and that's basically what you have to do if you get swatted, is cooperate, do everything you're told. Once that's over and everybody's safe, there's a process for going back and saying, obviously this was fake. Nobody here is not who they say they are. Here's everybody's ID. Nobody gets arrested, right? Now, if they can find out who did it, that speech, calling the cops and saying that a crime is taking place when a crime is not taking place, is not protected speech. Right? And lying to police officers to cause a perversion of justice is not protected speech. So you can get arrested for that, especially if damage is done. Like they busted down the door. Or like if they had to come in here, it would be a real pain in the butt for them because our door doesn't actually open all the way because we have shelves up in an inconvenient location, right? They would bust some of my favorite stuff that's close to the door that nobody else likes and cares about, but it's important to us. It's irreplaceable stuff, too.
One of the best things about America is if it does come worst to worst, you can at least defend yourself with your guns. Even if the government turns up at your door with all guns blazing. We don't have that option in Britain. We will be outgunned and outarmed and everything. But, what I'm getting at is, if you get swatted, then that gap gets reduced to nothing. Because if a SWAT team turns up at your door, I mean, it's practically the same situation. You may think you can have a standoff with them, where you can fight for your lives, but ultimately, you don't. You have to suffer the same thing. I guess you can talk to the police. You can get on your knees and say, okay, I didn't do anything wrong, and eventually they have to go, yeah, I guess you didn't do anything wrong. Whereas in the UK, they can be like, no, you did do something wrong. You said things.
Yeah, that's the thing. There actually has to be a crime for them to now. Granted, if you get accused of attacking your ex-wife, they can arrest you. They can take you in for questioning, and they can hold you for a period of time, and then they have to send you home, and you have due process that you can go through, and it's traumatizing. But with swatting, like I want to point out, there's a big difference in that when the cops show up at your door because someone said there's a kidnapper in your house and everybody's going to die if the cops don't show up. they're not coming to arrest you for being threatened by a kidnapper. They're coming looking for a stranger to be in your house, right? So only when there's some allegation that an individual is making threats and has a bunch of weapons, and then, you have to provide some evidence before the cops will believe that. If I just called and, targeted some feminist online and said that she was building bombs in her basement and had threatened to do a particular thing, I would be asked to show, can you send us the messages? Can you send us the voicemail? Can you send us a link to the social media posts that you're talking about? Because they need evidence before they can go in and attack and arrest somebody. They don't need evidence before they can go to somebody's rescue. They don't need that level of significant evidence before they can go to somebody's rescue. Just like if you have an alarm in your home and a safe room that locks, and it goes off and the alarm company calls the police and says, the alarm at such and such address has gone off, the safe room has locked, and there is movement indicated inside the house, and then they can't see who's in there, the cops have to assume that you're trapped in your safe room, and you have somebody burglarizing your house in the moment, and that it's okay for them to bust down your door and arrest that person so that you can be safe. But
I guess the hair I'm splitting is that in neither of our countries should the police have the right to come to your house and say some anonymous dickhead called us and told us to come swat your house. And we should both have the right to say, hippity hoppity, get off my property. and in neither of our countries do we, no matter how many guns we have in our house.
Well,
and both of our
unfortunately,
countries should have that right to say, no, it doesn't matter who anonymously called you. You need proof of a crime before you can come to my house with a bunch of fucking guns. Fuck off.
With the American situation that I described of, them saying that these people are being threatened by a kidnapper, unfortunately, that type of crime actually does happen here. And so if we said, well, the cops can't do anything about it, then when somebody actually does it and a neighbor sees a problem and calls the cops, they'll be like, they'd have to be like, I'm sorry, but we can't show up because there's this law. That's why it's more important to hold the caller accountable. Now, granted,
exactly,
it should be the cops' job when they show up to assess the situation quickly, efficiently, and accurately as much as possible. And if they can see, like, there's a family of 4 that's supposed to be being held hostage by a 5th person, and there's only 4 people in the house, and they're all terrified of the cops, that should tell them right away that there's no kidnapper. Or at least that these people should not get shot. And they should just calm down and start asking some questions. What's going on? Are you safe? Is everything okay? Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's an entirely different situation from, a crime has been committed or alleged. Let's go knock down the door of the person who's accused without there being an emergency that we have to do it that way in order to get him out of there, which the Biden administration did to their political opponents, and apparently so does the UK government to all of their opponents, no matter how minor.
Yeah, needless to say, it's no matter how bad it is in the US, it's exponentially worse in the UK. That's why I'm working as hard as I can to get the fuck out of this place. Join you in the land of the free.
That would be awesome. No, I didn't want to click that. Go back. That's not even a technical difficulty. That's just me.
What are you looking for? What are you
doing
looking for? You're making a big mistake.
Doing a boo-boo.
Me. I want you to listen carefully.
Wish me luck, folks. Anyway.
I'm going to start off with asking you.
Do you know a girl called Katie
No.
Leonard?
Yeah, like even the...
Describe each other as friends then.
video
So-
doesn't play properly for me.
It's not playing for you? Is it playing like, is it paused for you right now? Lauren? Uh-oh, did I lose my co-host there?
No, I can hear you.
No. Yeah.
Sometimes you drop out for like 10 to 20 seconds. And we assume it's like normal. I think it might have happened again.
Yeah, again.
Yeah. Okay. I just noticed
Just carry on,
Allison is saying
if-
in the
if we-
chat
if
that
we
the
dro-
title didn't update either, so I'm going to show. Like, this is... So you can see in the chat I'm going to post this in the chat. Because this is what I'm dealing with Restream, right? I do things in Restream from here, and apparently it has no effect at their end. I don't understand this.
Like, if we drop out for you, just carry on with the show. Yeah.
Yeah. I will, but I'm like looking at guys. I gotta know. I'm watching 2 computer screens with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 tabs, or 8 little mini windows. Some of the windows actually have multiple tabs now that I mention it. And some of them have to be minimized so I can see other ones. And then in the middle of while I'm doing all this, I'm getting communications about other things and so on. And then I'm also trying to keep track of the comments and stuff. So that's actually 12 windows now that I really mention it. Because there's also like the Super Chow channel and all that. Yeah, there's a lot. So if I like sound like I'm just trailing off into nothingness for a minute, I might be looking at something. But
no, like I said, we're getting better with the technical difficulties. Yeah. If it seems like it's going wrong, let's just get on with the show.
Yeah.
Like, let's not spend half an hour talking about the technical difficulties. Let's just
don't make me start reading off Richard Pierre's comments and telling the story of the time I got the cops called on me for bewitching the neighborhood birds and making them poop on the neighbor's car. That really happened, by the way. That is not a joke. It was kind of a joke, but it was real. That was a real incident.
It's a literal witch hunt, was it?
Yes. I'm telling you, in like the year 2000, the cops showed up on my parents' property to talk to me about having cast a spell on the neighborhood birds. Practicing witchcraft outdoors, casting a spell on the neighborhood birds to make them poop on the neighbor's car. I lived next door to a drug dealer for about 10 years. He sampled his supply quite a lot.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. And the upshot of that was, I kind of said something to them about, it's the dawning of the 21st century, and am I actually being accused of witchcraft? And then they were very uncomfortable for the entire rest of the conversation.
It's the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Yeah, no. It is definitely not. But yeah. And this is pretty much like, it's funny, but it's not funny, because when people can accuse you of things that are not even crimes, and then the cops show up and heckle you for it. No, Richard, I did not answer my door naked. I was already outside, and I was dressed. I can guarantee you that. I was also a mom at that point, actually, and had been a mom for about a year. So, but in any case, yeah, when all it takes is, an allegation of something that somebody doesn't like, and not an allegation of the commission of a crime to get the cops to show up and question you, That's a pretty sad state of affairs. And I got a taste of that because I was living next door to a drug dealer that the cops didn't want to deal with, because if they arrested him and they put him in jail, the state would have to pay for his cancer treatment.
Mm.
And
I mean, what's stopping the Russian government from swatting you? If all that's required is an untraceable phone call.
maybe they don't know who I am. They can't find me. I haven't been doxxed enough, guys. But either way, that's minor, right? When I started writing about a 7 Years in Hell story, for instance, that guy, the cops showed up at his place no less than 5 times, and his alleged offenses ranged from as serious as invisible rape. And I say invisible rape because he was on camera at other locations. And the first time that she made the allegation, she went in and said one day and one time. And then when they called her in and said, well, he's on camera at a pharmacy across town during that day and time. I got it wrong. It was this day. I just was so traumatized. My memory was messed up, and I said, Tuesday when I meant Thursday or some dumb shit like that. And of course he was on camera in another location at the time. And then the next one, there were witnesses at a third location. They remembered him being there. He had a receipt, and they had his cell phone data showing he was there. And so it was like, after that, his attorney went to the police and said, if you guys keep changing the date and time of the allegation, we are going to file discrimination charges. And that was dropped, right? That was the most egregious allegation. The most innocent allegation, he was accused of a drive-by greeting. He was accused of driving past a location where the accuser could not have been if she was telling the truth in the child support hearing when she told the judge that she was going to be in Arizona for 3 weeks. So he was accused of driving past a location in the Dayton metro area during that time and waving menacingly at her. And that mysteriously disappeared after his lawyer brought up the fact that she was in Arizona for 3 weeks during that time. He was accused of a crank call that never happened. Right, like, just insane shit, right? And every single time, the cops had to show up at his door, pull him out of his house in cuffs, take him in for questioning, hold him for so many hours, and then send him home. And because she was going to the cops in different municipalities, because when I say Dayton, Ohio, that's Dayton and Riverside and Centerville and Beaver Creek and Huber Heights and Inglewood and Oakwood and Kettering, and all of those are touching. It's all mishmashed together. You cross the street in Riverside, you might find yourself in the municipality of Dayton or Beaver Creek or Huber Heights. So yeah, it's same thing with Beaver Creek. If you cross one street, you might end up in another municipality, or if you cross the street in Kettering, you may find yourself in Dayton or Centerville. Everything's touching, right? That's big cities. So all you have to do, if you're like the vexatious litigant was, you wear your welcome out with the first police department. You go to the next police department, the next community over, and you make an allegation where you say, well, I was at a bus stop in this community when it happened, so it's your guys' jurisdiction now. And then they have to go to the police department in the municipality where the accused lives, and now 4 cops are showing up at his door. 2 to arrest him, and 2 to make sure that they don't do anything improper because it's actually their jurisdiction where he lives. And it's just such a abuse of power and abuse of process. But this happens to men in the United States and in the UK, in India, in Canada, in France, in Germany, every place that has any influence by English common law. This happens every day.
Yeah, waving menacingly, my ass. Try waving at all. Try making any hand gesture, like putting your hand in your pocket while making eye contact with any client group who's protected by the government, and they can say, well, he put his hand in his pocket menacingly, so he's guilty of a hate crime. I don't mean to play the oppression Olympics. I just mean to warn.
You're right.
I'm warning Americans that this is what happens a generation or two down the line if you let this get as bad as it's got over here.
Could be worse. He could have been doing that crazy hand jive.
Thank the Lord for Donald Trump. I know a lot of y'all don't like him, but we don't have anything resembling that. We don't have any pushback against this shit. And that's why if you so much as accidentally waggle a pinky finger while in eye shot of a fucking Muslim, you go to jail.
Yeah. At least you're not doing that crazy hand jive. That could be an act of domestic terrorism. Oh, so we go on here. Interestingly, they asked the question, describe her as friends then. I knew kids when I was in school way more than I wanted to know, actually, about them, that I would never describe them as friends. I might describe that time that they took my lunch money, which that didn't happen twice, by the way. But I wouldn't necessarily describe that same person as a friend, but I might know where that person lived. I might know what their favorite outfit looked like. I might know what kind of grades they were getting in class. I might know their middle name. Because I probably heard their mom say it at least once. But I wouldn't necessarily describe them as a friend. But yeah, they asked him if he knows this girl, and then they said, "Oh, describe her as friends then." And here's his response, which this is like they black and whited how kids demonstrate guilt.
Is she dead then?
That's his answer. Describe her as friends. Is she dead then?
Did you ask her?
So do you think it would be okay if we speak about it? I haven't done anything. You're a good dad, a great dad.
He hasn't been found guilty, he's been accused.
That isn't a minor part of the story. It's a direct jab at due process. How dare we assume innocence until proven guilty?
When it's a white boy.
When it's a boy. When it's a man.
Yeah.
Right? Because to feminists, there are women and girls, and there are males. And all males are as culpable as adults. It doesn't matter whether they're men or boys. It doesn't matter whether they're healthy or have some sort of disability, whether that disability is just physical or whether it's intellectual, whether they're mentally healthy or mentally ill. It's all the same to them because all they see is male. They don't see human male. They just see male. In fact, they often treat men like they're an entirely different species.
Makes you wonder why so many 13-year-old boys go, I'm a woman now. Mm-hmm. No, don't you worry about it. I'm just being a woman because I'd rather be a woman. It's nothing legally expedient. Don't you worry.
Yeah. Or even it's not because I can't live with the person that everyone would just assume I am if I'm male. I must be female because it's only acceptable to be female and I want to be acceptable. Right? In the U.S., there's a lot of teachers that have been inundating their classes with the concept that masculinity is made up of toxic characteristics that have to be controlled. And femininity is angelic and good and innocent and at risk and protected, and therefore has some degree of earned privilege. And of course, then when they get into the gender bender ideology, and they say anybody can be any sex, and you have all these choices, and it doesn't matter if you have dysphoria or not. If you say you're a girl, you're a girl. If you say you're a boy, you're a boy. You don't have to take hormones or get surgery or any of that. Of course, boys are going to be like, well, if I can stop being the bad sex and start being the good sex, then I can identify as a girl and I'll make it through school.
A good differentiator is, did they make you study The Handmaid's Tale in school? Most Gen Xers will say, no. I never heard of this until the internet came about in the 2000s. Whereas most millennials, like myself, will say, yeah, there was an entire module of my post-16 class where they forced us to study The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
They forced us to do essays and exams about The Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, absolutely. That's not the absolute divide, but that was the point where it was beyond redemption.
Well, The Handmaid's Tale was published when I was in the 7th grade.
But it was mostly Canadians who were to study it at that point. But by the time it rolled around to the late 90s, when even millennials in England and probably the US were being forced to study it, and they would be failed if they didn't conform to everything these English teachers told us to believe about it. And that's where you can tell that the English department in every school across the country had been very much consumed by this not just feminist ideology, but radical feminist.
So in
ideology.
1992, when I was at university, I had to read a chapter of The Handmaid's Tale. I also had to read the short story, Margaret Atwood's short story, Rape Fantasies. And then I had to write an essay about it. And I was mad about having to read it, and I was mad about having to write an essay. So I wrote an essay describing the difference between maybe normal women's potential fantasies that they described in the story, and the type of fantasies that a gal might have if she'd been victimized. And I used the movie, what was it called? I Spit on Your Grave as an example. Don't watch I Spit on Your Grave. It's a horrible movie. I saw it because I'm into like B movies and worse than B movies. Like movies that you would be like, okay, that's not B, that's like D or something. I've seen them like Butt Crack and Zombievers. But I Spit on Your Grave was basically just gore and revenge put together as a fantasy. And it was basically a rape revenge fantasy. And somebody thought I would like it because of my experiences. And needless to say, I did not. But in any case, it was like one of the few B movies that I was just like, this is horrible. Yeah, that my professor had a terrible time commenting on my essay because of the way that I compared that. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that everybody has the same idea when it comes to rape fantasies, right? That really kind of threw her for a loop. The idea that I don't think she thought of women as having violent capacity. But yeah, the thing that pissed me off, John Doe mentions it here, and there's a whole subgenre, as Gabriel, Phil, and Lucas points out, which I actually learned about and have tried my best to avoid. Which, if you're like a enjoyer of B movies, that's where a lot of it is. So you kind of have to watch out for that. But John Doe says he saw the film, and yeah, there was a not mentally ill, intellectually disabled. An intellectually disabled man was like, his buddies forced him to join in and participate, and then she took revenge on him too. And in my opinion, that guy was also a rape victim, because he didn't get a choice in the matter either. And then she killed the other rape victim for being part of her experience. And like, that was one. It's actually a movie we could probably analyze. It's just I'm not sure I could stomach it again, because it was just such a. It was a piece of shit. I'll just be honest about that. But yeah, this type of demonization of men, and the various ways in which feminist literature and feminist media demonizes men, boys, even male animals, they'll demonize at times. They have this running, anything that men do is dirty, anything that males do is dirty, anything that males do is tainted, anything that males touch is tainted, right? That's sort of this theme, and anything that is wrong that they want to portray, any victim narrative that they want to create, the perpetrator must be male, right? The bad guy has to be male.
It always comes back to native males. Like, they'll look at native nature documentaries about lions and say, look, the female lions do all of the work and the male lions do nothing. That's like not true, but they'll do that anyway. And they'll do the same thing with human races. They'll look at the things that immigrant males do, and they'll say, look, we need to ban native males from ever accessing the internet, because that's the only thing that could possibly be the problem. Like, male lions kill female lions. I'm sure they do. They must. I mean, it's the only thing. And so we need to prevent native males from accessing the internet. This is a tweet I wrote recently. No matter what happens in the world, they blame everything on males and the internet, and so they need to prevent males from accessing the internet.
Yeah.
And this I almost said documentary. Sorry, this act of fiction that is being presented as an accurate reflection of reality, of immigrant males, in this case an immigrant male, murdering a girl, and it doesn't occur to them that anything could possibly be the problem except native males and the internet, because those are the two things they still don't have control of: native males and the internet. So, like, we need to cut down on the influence of the internet, and we need to cut down on the influence of native males.
Well, and when they say the internet,
those are the things we're allowed to hate, because
when they say the internet, they only mean the parts of the internet that are not controlled by feminists.
Exactly. This is why the entire television network in the UK, not just the BBC, but every television channel, because every television channel in the UK is regulated by Ofcom, which is a government institution. They take every opportunity to say the problem is the internet and the problem is males, because that's their mandate. They hate males and they hate the internet because the internet is a threat to their hegemony, and males are a threat to their hegemony. So they're going to do this no matter what happens. If an asteroid hit London tomorrow, they would say, we need to ban males from the internet. I know that sounds like a joke, but it's exactly what would happen. No matter what happens,
aliens have landed. We need to ban males from the internet.
Exactly. It's all they can do because it's all they care about.
We found the cure for cancer. Ban males from the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the cure for cancer, because we all know feminism is cancer. You can't have males on the internet if we found the cure for feminism.
Correct.
Yeah.
If they haven't flooded the fucking NHS with women and foreigners, we might have found the cure for cancer by now.
Yeah, that's true.
What have you done? Banged by a girl, you sausage.
So now we're looking at a portrayal of the feminist concept of toxic masculinity, right? Oh, a girl beat you. What's wrong with you? And there's no explanation as to why that's wrong. It can't be that we're shaming boys for having vulnerabilities. That can't be why that's wrong, right? No, it's because it's misogynistic, right? And so now you're going to see the idea that girls are harmed. Not that boys are harmed, but that girls are harmed if a girl beats up a boy and the boy gets made fun of for losing a fight. Of course, he's not allowed to defend himself because he can't hit a girl, right? That's not okay. And he's supposed to be able to take it because, as we all know, it's justified that boys don't have any recourse if a girl attacks a boy because boys are bigger and stronger, even though for about the first 12 years of their lives, actually for a large portion of that, girls are bigger and stronger if they're the same age. And then all of a sudden...
But they're always more mature.
Yeah.
Women and girls are always more mature than males, unless SA happens, in which case they couldn't possibly have helped.
But the really, really screwy thing is how they're measuring maturity there, right? Because it's not based on girls making smarter decisions, being more kind to the people around them, being more diplomatic about things or anything. No, it's because they get their periods earlier than boys develop viable semen. So maturity is measured in can you produce a baby, not can you make the related decisions wisely and effectively to ensure the survival of a baby, or even that your relationship is going to be halfway decent. But yeah, there will be more of this.
You're not getting it.
What am I not getting?
Dad, you're not reading what they're doing. It's a call to action by the manosphere.
A call to action by the manosphere. They
Jesus
literally
Christ.
put that in there.
They just can't stand women in gaming.
Go home, gamer girl.
80% of women are attracted to 20% of men.
There's a call to action by the manosphere. 80% of women are attracted to 20. Load those two things, one right after the other. Like, that's not a call to action. All right, that's a statistic.
You must trick them because you'll never get them in a normal way.
You must trick them. I haven't heard, I've heard incels talking about this. I've actually discussed this subject with incels. I haven't seen a single one say that. Oh, you have to trick them. You'll never get them in a normal way. No. A lot of them have said, I'm going to be alone for my whole life. Nobody's ever going to love me. Nobody's ever going to want me. Nobody's ever going to care about me. They don't say,
You'll notice...
I have to go get what I want through adverse means. They say, I will never have what is normal for other people.
They never mention MGTOW. You'll notice this. This is a point I made in my last video that I uploaded a few hours ago. MGTOW in general are not demanding change. They are walking away from the system in the assumption that it's not going to change in their lifetime. That's how dejected they've become. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful or dejective. Like, a lot of men have come to the conclusion that the system is so fucked that it's not going to change in their lifetime. And so they're just walking away from it. And men can do that. Because men are capable of fending for themselves, of being content with their own company in ways women, for the most part, are not. And this is why women, no matter how dejected they get, will continue to appeal to the government to not just give them everything they want, but force men to give them everything they want. And this is the important difference between MGTOW and, I want to say, feminism, but it's not just feminism, it's women in general, women who have been hoodwinked into trusting the government to give them what they want. And that is a shitload of women. I might even say is most women. And this is why, again, I have to say, you're not just fighting against the majority. It's very possible that the majority of women have been hoodwinked in this way to assuming that they can just appeal to the government to force men to give them everything they want. Because they can, and they will.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it really hoodwinked if it's true? They can do that.
It's true because the government is able to make it true, and that doesn't make it right.
Right. No, it's not right.
It makes it really fucking wrong.
It's not right, but it is true. That's the sad thing. Just like, this is something that we have to make sure that we understand. Feminists get this wrong all the time, right? Something can be true and wrong. It's true that if you hang out with violent criminals, you are more likely to be the victim of a violent crime than if you remain in safe locations with safer people. It doesn't mean that it'll never happen if you're hanging out in safer locations with safer people, but you make yourself more vulnerable if you hang out with violent criminals. You make yourself more vulnerable as a potential victim, and you make yourself more likely to be a target, especially if they're violent criminals that are in competition with other violent criminals. Which that's actually one of the reasons I've been a victim of violent crime in the past, was because I hung out with violent criminals that were in competition with other violent criminals. So I'm not speaking in judgment of other people, I'm speaking from personal experience. The crime happened to me because of my associations, right? Feminists will call that victim blaming. No, I didn't make the crime happen, but I was vulnerable to it because of my choices. It's the difference between, if you aren't wearing your seatbelt, you're more likely to get injured, and if you aren't wearing your seatbelt, the other person's moving violation that caused the car accident is your fault. Like, nobody says the latter, and nobody should be taking the former as a statement of the latter. So yeah. We can recognize that it is absolutely true that women can exploit government power that way. It is absolutely true. It shouldn't be, but it is. That's the situation we're fighting right now. Yeah, let's go on with this a little bit. Come on, there we go. No sound. Let's go back 5 seconds. Let it not have sound for here.
Percent of men. You must trick them because you'll never get them in a normal way.
We've done nothing wrong, have we? Hey!
So now a lot of it is just any trailer gives you a bunch of scenes like that where if it's supposed to be like an action movie or a drama, like you're supposed to wonder what's going on there and want to see the context around it and everything. But to everybody who sees through the psyop, it looks like a feminist temper tantrum. Here's how we're going to portray these men. And I guarantee you, there are two things that they're going to portray about the father and the son, right? The father's going to feel sorry for his son, and then he's also going to feel sorry for himself. And, his embarrassment. And he's going to, we've done nothing wrong. We're good parents. Our child turned out like this entirely independently of
and the mother's going to be a victim. Right?
Yep,
Every woman in this kid's life is going to be a victim of him.
Yeah, and it's going to be a consistent portrayal. Right? The dad's not crying because or near tears because he's compassionate here. He's near tears because he can hear his son behaving in a way that is embarrassing to him.
Look at me!
You can't control what I fucking do. There you go. Right? Feminists always tell you what they want. Underneath everything, they'll have one little line in there, one little phrase. This is what is really the goal. They don't care about so-called toxic masculinity. They don't care if boys are actually hearing things that will cause problems for them on the internet and not seeing challenges to toxic narratives. They don't care about that. They don't care if a little girl dies. They don't care if an entire family's life is destroyed by the loss of a loved one and another entire family's life is destroyed by a crime committed by their loved one. They don't care about any of that. It's control. It is about power and control. The Duluth model is feminists telling on themselves. They are promoting this abusive narrative about little boys to get power and control over society. This is browbeating.
Browbeating of our own men. It's how do we control our own men from the earliest possible age, and I mean our own. Like, a lot of people don't understand why there's this counterintuitive alliance between native feminists and foreign men. They call it Muslim men. Like, why do Western feminists love Muslim men so much when by their own narrative they proclaim that Muslim men hate their own? They don't. Muslim men protect their own. They have their own system by which they protect their own. The point is, Western feminists, just like all feminists, but almost all feminists are Western, they're not interested in protecting women. They're interested in controlling their own men. And when I say own, I mean own, because they believe they own their own men. That's why they don't try to control foreign men, because they don't own them. They own their own men. Like, they don't claim ownership over foreign men or Muslim men or anything like this. That's not part of their paradigm. Their paradigm is, we are Western and we own Western men. They are our property, and so they are our responsibility. Wait, I mean, that makes it sound like they have any responsibility. But the only sense of responsibility they have is control over the men that they feel they own. And so that's why they treat their own men as slaves. Because those men belong to them. It's I know this sounds counterintuitive, but it's all explainable when I repeat this word that you all keep forgetting. It's oikophobia. They hate their own men. They hate their own men because they are their own. That's what oikophobia is. They hate the men that they find familiar, and they don't hate their own women, even though that would be oikophobia, and that's where it becomes confusing. It's because it's misandric.
They do look down on their own women, though. They pretend their own women are totally helpless, totally inept, totally unintelligent enough to be unable to do things for themselves, to need government to protect them, to need government to take care of them, to need a leg up in all things at all times. And yet, at the same time, you have to tell them they're geniuses or they'll be utterly emotionally destroyed. Like, if somebody felt that way about me, I'd want to crawl in a hole and die.
Yeah.
At least if I took them seriously. I don't care if feminists feel that way, because I don't put any credence to the way that they think or feel. But this thing with the hatred toward their own men and their own boys, it goes so deep that they are literally willing... Like, this is an organization of feminist interests in the UK literally demonizing English boys. On the whole, as a group, en masse, by portraying something that never happened as the reality of something entirely different that did happen.
It's crazy what your brain tells you to do when you're a kid.
So my attention was drawn to this week. So this thing is out already. It's already on Netflix. I haven't seen it. I really don't want to watch it, but I probably will, just to see what the whole portrayal is. I really would rather not have to. But before we finish our show, there is something that I'm going to compare it to, all right? So I want you to remember, the basis of this story is this boy allegedly has been listening to... They're specifically targeting incels here. This boy has allegedly been listening to incel rhetoric, which is apparently the entire manosphere, and apparently always violent and sneaky and stuff like that. Not what real incels sound like, but okay. And apparently, he thinks that he has to manipulate or use violence in order to secure and maintain a relationship. So this story, my attention was drawn to this story just a day or so ago. It just happened. The ruling on it, rather, just happened. But initially we were going to talk about that other story, and I was going to compare it to the bread knife lady, and I was like looking up. Then this came out, and I read the story. And initially they make it sound like, you know, this chick argues self-defense, and the court says, oh, yeah, you were defending yourself, you didn't murder anybody. You'd think the guy was on top of her, ground and pound, and she stabbed up into him to get him off of her, and she was saved, right? And you have to read deep into the story to get it. The initial thing, right, is all about her tears of relief and how her family reacted. It says the girl who was 17 at the time of the attack cannot be identified. She said she was acting in self-defense when she plunged a kitchen knife into Seb O'Halloran's chest at her Maldura home on October 21st. So it starts making it sound like, you know, this guy was attacking this girl in her own home. Of course, it's definitely self-defense, right? And you look at it. Prosecutors called the incident murder. Why would they do that? So I started reading further. And the first thing that struck me, right, minutes before the death, the girl had been involved in a physical tussle with her then boyfriend, who was Mr. O'Halloran's friend. So the fight wasn't between her and the victim of the killing, the dead guy. It was between her and the guy that she was dating. But then it says, outnumbered by the two men, and there's nothing in between here indicating that O'Halloran did anything. And I'm like, what took place that made her outnumbered? Was it just because he was present? Because him just being present doesn't mean anything. Outnumbered by the two men, she retrieved a cook's knife from the kitchen. So she went into the kitchen from the room they were in and then went to confront her boyfriend. All right? Going to confront somebody is not self-defense. So I can tell you exactly what would happen if I was in a home with two assailants and I was scared of them because this is the believing the pair was planning to bash or rape her. All right. So if I'm in a home, if I'm in my parents' house when I'm a kid, and I'm in the living room with two guys, and I think they're going to try to bash me and rape me, I'm locking myself in the bathroom, or I'm going out the side door to the neighbor's house and calling the cops. I'm not going into the kitchen for a knife and then go back into the living room where I am outnumbered. Fuck that. I'm out of there.
Yeah.
Right?
Quick, fast. Jesus.
So I got suspicious because I'm like, what else is in this story? Is the way this is described is like it's obviously leaving out a shitload of context. Outnumbered by the two men, she does this. Prosecutors say, Mr. O'Halloran was standing in her way when the girl allegedly raised the knife and told him to move. Seconds later, he was stabbed. All right.
Oh my God! He stood in front of the knife, and that's how he got stabbed. Jesus Christ! He got in the way of the knife.
Yeah, where's
he
the
attacked the knife?
Yes.
Where's the description of him attacking her? Where's the description of him doing anything but blocking her exit? Like now, it's possible that she lived in one of the few houses in the world that has only one door, no windows, and is all second floor, even if it did or something. But I doubt it. Maybe she's in an apartment that's like way up, sky high from the ground and only has a door. Maybe that's it. And no bathroom to lock herself in, and she didn't have a cell phone in the year that this happened. And my brain's going, how the heck do you not hide, lock the door, call the cops that will come and obviously break down the door because you're in danger? Just call the cops and tell them he typed in on your computer. You're in the UK. But no, none of that, right? So why did exactly Mr. O'Halloran deserve to die? Because the boyfriend, who was also not identified for legal reasons, was described as a bad person. He was supposedly, he's a drug dealer, described by the girl's legal team as a drug dealer who was a controlling and sexually violent. They didn't finish their sentence there. He was a controlling.
And he's that young that he can't be named, but he's this big drug dealer kingpin. Get the fuck out of here, man.
Yes. Oh, and he was deceitful, egocentric, and selfish. Therefore, his friend deserved to be stabbed in the chest for not getting out of her way.
God damn it.
Her lawyer, Sharon, I'm translating this into American, her barrister is her lawyer. Sharon Lacey SC said her client showed courage while acting in self-defense. Right? She was understandably terrified in that moment. She did what she could do to defend herself and immediately let go of the knife and froze.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Right.
Jesus,
Now,
so brave.
If these guys were going to bash her, as she said, and she dropped her weapon and froze, Why didn't the boyfriend beat the hell out of her in that moment?
Right.
Like, if that's what was it, if you are gonna try to convince me that a violent criminal who was threatening to commit a violent crime against you is going to stop because you disarmed yourself, personal experience, no, they don't stop. If you are vulnerable, that's the cue to accelerate.
Right.
But it goes on. So her story is she attacked 2 men and stabbed one of them because they made her feel unsafe, and the one that she was dating was an asshole. And in self-defense, she killed the other. So, like, what's the rest of the story? And it describes him. He was a passionate motocross rider who was described by his family as a dearly loved son, brother, grandson, mate. Miss Lacey conceded Mr. Halloran had not laid a finger on the girl, so he didn't do anything to her, but argued she was afraid of him because he had a reputation of being involved in fights. So she was afraid. He made her feel afraid. I've seen this too. One of my college friends was arrested because a girl gave "I was afraid of him" as the reason why she broke into his house, took one of his possessions, and beat him over the head and shoulders with it.
Jesus Christ.
It's domestic violence to have a woman be afraid of you. So scared that she breaks into your house and gets as close to you as humanly possible. And the defense says she had battered woman syndrome, right? The confrontation took place after the girl had endured months of abuse at the hands of her then boyfriend, who allegedly got her hooked on drugs and used cocaine as a reward if she complied with his demands. So he shared his drugs with her. You can't reward somebody with something they don't want.
Right.
It's not a reward if you don't want it. It's an assault. So I'm not buying that. Like, chicks choose to use drugs just as much as dudes do.
Yep.
And here's where they had already lost me, but here's where the last nail in the coffin hit. She became angry after learning the boyfriend had been cheating on her with someone, the court said. Prosecutors argued that anger turned to rage and that she wanted to hurt or confront the boyfriend. In the lead up to the stabbing, the teenager slashed the tires of her boyfriend's car and cut up his clothing. Because, you know, you always do your best to really piss someone off if you're scared of them.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Johnson said even if the girl was a victim of family violence, using the knife could not be considered as a necessary or reasonable response in the circumstances. But Ms. Lucy said the stabbing occurred after the girl had been thrown to the ground and punched in the face. However, the earlier part of the story does point out she came out of the kitchen with the knife and the guy was in her way, and she stabbed him. She treats it as a him or me scenario, but in reality, this was a circumstance, at worst, of two-way domestic violence. Right? Where she was violent toward him, she was abusive toward him, and he was abusive toward her, if her story is to be believed about his behavior. That she slashed his tire, she engaged in behavior that if a guy did it to a gal, would be called stalking. And this is how it all ended up. Right? This is treated in the media as a justifiable homicide. She got mad, confronted him over cheating, had an argument, went into the kitchen and got a knife, confronted him and his buddy, and then stabbed his buddy for refusing to get out of her way. Compare that to what we just saw. I mean, thinking about it, and I know Mike probably can't comment on this at all because it's a real news story and it's about a woman. And if you can't say anything about stuff like that in the UK, you can't say anything about stuff
Women
like that.
are beautiful. I can say nothing.
Yeah. But I'm in Ohio. And contrary to recent proclamations by certain politicians in the UK, they can't arrest me for jack shit. I live here. I can say anything I want. This is not a subsidiary of the UK, and we are not subject to UK law.
But do make sure you don't get swatted for what you're about to say.
Yeah. If I get swatted, it's going to be for what I've said already. I actually got into an argument on X about this with some people. And there is an individual getting involved in that conversation claiming to have been in the courtroom and knowing things the rest of us, and she's a rape victim and blah, blah, blah. Not getting raped does not make you a rape victim, okay?
No.
Thinking that you might be at risk of getting raped and then not getting raped also does not make you a rape victim. There's a huge difference between what goes on in your head and what is happening in front of you and around you and to you in real life. And unfortunately, feminists have got women so tied up in the other kind of rape fantasies, right? Margaret Atwood's rape fantasy story was a story about people responding to a magazine article about women having fantasies of being raped, with the idea, the discussion being, oh, it's actually about sex that they don't have to take responsibility for. It's not real rape. And then she goes on and takes it to a ridiculous place, and it's actually kind of funny the way she does that. But the other kind of rape fantasy is where you drive yourself nuts with fear of something that is never going to happen to you. Right? If the statistic that says 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 women will be raped in their lifetime, that means you have 3 times the chance of never experiencing it than you do of ever experiencing it. So being constantly afraid is stupid. And especially being afraid when you haven't been threatened. Right? So this woman drove herself nuts, did something stupid, killed a person who did not try to rape her and did not threaten her, right? But this individual that I was arguing with on X got very heated, accused me of attacking a rape victim, and then denied my experiences. Because I flat out said, you can't use us as your cannon fodder. We're not your shield to be able to demonize men and then not get called on it. You can't just haul us out as a bunch of human, meat shields to deflect criticism when you do something like that. You are still an asshole. Shame on you. And immediately, since I didn't allow him to use my experience as a one-time victim, has been more than one time, but as a historical victim, because I don't like talking about it as though I'm still a victim when it happened years and years ago, right? I'm not a victim now, but I don't like that being exploited either, and I don't like it being exploited as an excuse. You can't criticize when we demonize men because this thing. No, fuck you. You can't have that. And so, of course, the individual got very heated, got very abusive, said things that were so bad that Twitter or X limited the visibility of his comments and then blocked me so that I couldn't respond. Because, very supportive of women. And that's the comparison we have right here. A boy who is fictional and is portrayed as having stabbed a girl over a sense of sexual entitlement, and because other boys and men online said sexually entitled things to him, according to the story, and that's supposed to be the narrative that you see when you hear about these stabbings that are happening, and you compare it to a real life, honest to goodness, this happened, and there was an arrest and a trial and everything, stabbing that started with sexual entitlement. How dare you cheat on me? I'm going to start a fight with you. But since it's a girl, it's in self-defense and it's okay. It's no big deal, and we're not allowed to get mad about the fact that that excuse was made. And that is the absolute state of propaganda. So there you go. Let me see if we have any other super chats, super chows, rumble rants. We have a rumble rant. Okay, NobaFan21 gave us $1 and said, feminists, men created the world we live in and women had no influence in it. Men, well, we like the benefits and we decide to go back to women's rights. Feminist, how could this have happened? Yeah.
That sounds exactly like the kind of thing that would involve 3 colons.
Yep.
I.e. a great deal of shit.
Yep. Well, it's better than having to go visit the IRS's website. The URL to the IRS's website is C:// ###. And with that nasty-ass joke... Sorry, guys. I had to do that. We do not have any other super chats or super chows that I haven't already read. So, it's already 9:30. I'm going to call it. We've been on here for 2 hours, and I can't ask Mike to comment on this part of the subject because it's not fiction, it's real. And I think I probably wore you out, didn't I, Lauren?
Yeah, it is beyond past my bedtime.
But I think y'all have seen the comparison here. We can't talk about what actually is happening with those knife crimes. They have to demonize real boys using a fictional character portrayed in a way that's not realistic. This is not actually happening. But when a girl actually does what he's accused of, it's self-defense. So, in our self-defense, we're going to say that's the end of this stream. Next week, we'll be right back to searching to find a cure for U.S. AIDS. And so thanks to y'all for listening. Thanks for going through this weird sludge with me. Thanks to everybody who works in the background to make HBR Talk happen. Good night, all.
Avenge me!
Men's rights activists are machines.
We will see you next Thursday.
Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.